Hey guys, this is Cross for Double Cross Games, and today we are going to be adding some functionality to the simple wandering AI we made a few videos back. If you remember, we were on the top-down template Unreal 4.25, and we had completed adding our guy here, and he just kind of wanders around, stops for a few seconds, and then continues to wander. Now, I had my debug turned on for this, so if you click on your show properties and go to developer and AI debug, turn that, and so you're probably going to want to turn that on so you can see some of the stuff that we're going to be doing here. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to need is we're going to add a new state to our guy. So we have our state enum here, double click the little new button, and we're going to add a follow. We're going to add a follow state because he's just going to follow us around. Now that we have that state on there, we are going to have to create some logic for it. So we double click on our behavior tree and we drag from here. We're going to put down a sequence, and our sequence is going to need a decorator like the idle wander has. So we'll right click, scroll down to decorator and select blackboard decorator. Blackboard decorator, if we click on that, go to its details, we're going to set it to state. We're going to make sure that we have follow state set. Key query equal to follow. Now what we're going to want to do is we are going to want our character to move to whoever we see, right? We're going to need a new blackboard key for that. We go to new key and we're going to select object. And this object is going to be called target actor. But this target actor is not just going to be any target, any object. So we're going to hit the key type arrow, and under base class, instead of object, we are going to select actor. This can actually get a lot more detailed. So if you have a parent class for all of your characters, which includes the player itself, you would probably want to use that here. So if I were to reparent top-down character to our NPC base, not only would I get all of my NPC base variables added automatically to my top-down character, but then I would be able to select NPC base from here. And this would actually work. But actor works just fine for now. So we'll leave that there, and let's take a quick look at how this is set up. So how do we select our state? No, actually, instead of self actor, let's change that to target actor. And let's double click on our state server so we can see what we're actually doing here. We're just getting whatever state is in the NPC and passing it on as a blackboard key, which means that our character is actually what's deciding that, and essentially our NPC base is just defaulting to it. So there's really just nothing to it. So then let's go ahead and make a little bit of a change here. We'll start by giving him eyes. We're going to go ahead and click on the add component and do AI perception. We add an AI perception. And on the details portion of the AI perception, we're going to go ahead and add our sight configuration. We're going to hit this little drop down arrow and this drop down arrow next to sense configuration. We're going to lower this to about 1,000. And we're going to want to lose sight. We're going to lose sight around 1,500 instead of 3,500. And I like to turn on my detection by affiliation to all of them. That's in part because Unreal 4.25 doesn't actually have the detection by affiliation fully coded into it. So there's no way of telling it who are friendlies and who are enemies without you going into the friend or foe on C++ and adding it. And we're going to leave the max age to 0 so that it always wins, or it always remembers you, and that should be good for now. Now we have this AI perception, and if we go back and hit simulate, we have our AI debug set up. So if I can just click on this guy and press number 4, we can already see that his AI perception is working. The green circle is his view target range, and the pink circle is actually how far they have to be for him to lose sight of them. If you look carefully, what it actually does is when you're within his cone of vision inside the green circle, it updates the perception of your character. Between the green and the pink, it doesn't actually update it. It just kind of assumes you're still there. And theoretically, if we had set it up for him to forget you at any point, when you're outside of the pink circle, he would forget you. He would lose sight of you. So if we hit stop, so right now we have everything we need. We just need him to actually see you, right? So let's go ahead into our state service, take an actual look at his perception. We're going to drag out of our NPC base, and we're going to do get AI perception. Now, if you're trying to drag out of the controlled pawn, this will not show up because the controlled pawn is just the basic character. And so it doesn't have the AI perception added to it by default. You'll have to actually cast to get it. Once you have your AI perception, you can drag out of that and get perceived actors. Notice how there's a get perceived hostile actors. That again doesn't really work unless you go into C++ and set up the friend or foe perception portion of it. But we can actually get around that. So now that we have our perceived actors, we're going to drag out of that and do for each loop with break. And in fact, we can go ahead and get rid of this for now. And while we're at it, we're going to add our own state variable. Just state is fine, I suppose. And we'll set it to state. Scroll all the way down because it's at the bottom, and compile and save. We'll come back to that in a second. Grab our for each loop with break. We're going to plug it into our NPC base. And this is going to give us all of the actors that are currently being perceived by our AI. So we're going to grab our array element, and we're going to say is valid. Because right now there's only one actor on the stage, right? So if this is valid, then that means he sees us. And therefore, we want his state to change. So just for testing, we're going to do state. Oh, I forgot to delete that. We're going to add a new variable and call it state key. And that is going to be of the type Blackboard key selector. And we're going to turn on the little eyeball and compile, save. And we're going to drag our state key in and set Blackboard value as enum. If it is valid, we are going to set our state to follow. plug it in, and we are going to plug our state directly in there. So now we're setting our state directly in our behavior tree. The benefit of that is that our behavior tree is going to update regularly, whereas our character itself does not necessarily need to. On the other hand, once we set this to follow, he's just going to get stuck in follow forever, huh? And we need to break our loop before we get ahead of ourselves. Bring it up here. And I'm double clicking to add a reroute node. That's what I'm doing right there. So we can get this looking a little nicer. If you don't see anything, then we're going to do Control C, Control V. I'm going to set it to idle wander. So what's going to happen is this is going to hit, and this is going to say idle wander all the time, except when he sees us, at which point it's going to say follow and break out of the loop immediately. Now we don't know necessarily what our character saw here. Assuming that there's more than one actor on the stage, you don't know who he saw necessarily. But what we want to do is we want our NPC here to go to the target actor. And yes, we could theoretically grab this array element and set it to target actor and it would still work. But I like to set up a service here because later on you might want your NPC to go to the closest enemy, not just the first enemy he saw. You want him to aggro on the first enemy, but then maybe you want him to run to the enemy that is closest to him, and you want that to update repeatedly so that he changes targets if he needs to. Or you can set up some other kind of target priority, but for now, we're just going to add a service. So we're going to hit the new service button, select BT Service Blueprint Base, which is the default name. We're going to top-down example map. We're going to rename it right away. We're going to call it follow service. Double click our follow service. We're going to override our receive tick AI. And we're going to cast to NPC base. And from our NPC base, we're going to get perceived actors. Nope, it's a little messy. We're going to get our perceived actors, and we are going to do a for each loop, and we want to get actor location, and then we are going to get our location, get actor location. We're gonna do distance and we're gonna get a distance vector between these two guys. So that's gonna give us the distance between the person we're seeing and the person that we are. And we're gonna promote that to a variable. Alright, so that's just gonna set this to distance, right? But what we actually want to do is we want to see if the first distance is smaller than the second distance, so we can compare it, right? A couple of ways of tackling this. You can set the distance by default to something really high, like 9999999, and so it's always going, the first distance is always going to be shorter, and that's just going to repeat itself, so it won't matter. But you could also see if this is index 0. If this is index 0, then we want that, then we're going to set this every time. If it is not index 0, then what we're going to do is we're going to do a less than, and we're going to plug in our variable distance. And do another branch, and I just hold down the B key and left click to drop a branch and hook that up. And so if this distance vector is smaller than my current distance, then we are going to Control C, Control V. We are going to set our distance variable to the new distance. In addition to setting the distance to shortest distance, we're going to take the actual array element and we are going to set it to our target. So we need a target actor key variable, which needs to be, we're going to turn that into a Blackboard key selector. In our Blackboard key selector, get is going to be set as object. And that object is going to be our element, our current array element. So when we get the first one, that's just our first person we're going to start running to. But as we run towards that person, our vision, our character's vision is going to move. And so we want our character to make the smart decision, right? Don't just chase through a whole bunch of other bad guys. We want him to, if you are at a shorter distance from a different possible target, you're going to set that person as your target. Kind of do it like that. Now this can get messy. These sort of things can get messy. The easiest way to keep it from getting out of control is to actually just promote the array element to a variable. But I can do that off camera so you guys aren't just waiting for me to clean up. So now our target actor key is being set. And if we go back to our behavior tree, all we have to do is on our sequence, we right click, we go to add service, and we do our follow service. Now let's not forget to set our target actor key to target actor. And let's go ahead and check our settings for move to, and that should work. Now let's see if this actually works. So we press play, and he doesn't see us because we just wandered off. Select our AI, who seems to be stuck to a wall right there, and see what he's doing. He has not seen us, and he is in the state follow. So he saw something, and that might have actually been a pawn of some kind that we, oh, ha, that's funny. He saw our players start and went to it. Let's go ahead and kill that since we don't actually need it. Let's see what happens now. So right now, active task is none. That's not a great sign, huh? He is in the state follow, but what is he seeing? Well, he saw us, but he's not actually moving towards us. Why is that? Let's take a look. Ah, it's because we did not check ignore restart self. So he's getting the move to command 1,000 times in a row. Let's see if that was actually the problem. Yep. And so now he's going to be stuck there because he's there. So just to test it out, I'm going to go ahead and actually hit the play button and walk around. So see if he will actually chase me. Oh, wait. Pay attention to me. There we go. And so now he's just going to chase me endlessly until I manage to lose sight, manage to get him to lose sight of me, which he will never do because we set the he's kind of clipping when he makes the turns. Anyway, so that's pretty much it. We set up a guy that will endlessly chase us on the stage. I hope this was helpful, and in the next video I'm going to actually set up our AI to patrol between certain points so that he's more likely to see us. But if you guys want to see more about how the AI perception works and get a little bit into more detail, let me know. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one.